Crunch. Howdy from Las Vegas. It's your girl from our little show of TikToks. Sony, I hope you're well. Hope everything's going good for you. If you are doing the holiday stuff, hope that's going great. The weather here is finally getting, some degree of cold. So, my shoe broke. Like, okay, yeah, like most people have more than one pair of shoes. I don't just have one pair of shoes. But, and you know what? If you do only have one pair of shoes, I've been there, so I feel you on that. So then you understand even more the detriment of, somebody, was that the right word? With somebody, shoes, your daily driver shoes, if you will, like the shoes you wear all the time, or, your beaters, or whatever you call them, the shoes that you use to get around, walk around, run errands. If you have such a pair of shoes and they break, that's not always good news. Hopefully for most of you, it's just a matter of going somewhere and getting a new pair of shoes. But I know that there have been times when I couldn't afford, any kind of setback like that whatsoever. And then for me being recently laid off, it just kind of reminded me of those times, and I'm like, no, I can't go back to those days, but fortunately I'm a fighter. The show goes on, and I have faith that your girl is going to come out on top before the new year. But we are on a crunch, so the stakes are high, and your girl is like tired of this particular battle is wearing on me a little bit, because I've had a lot of different jobs, a lot of different experiences, but it just seems like regardless of that, like it hasn't mattered that I've gone to school and gotten a degree. It hasn't mattered that I served in the military. In fact, there were times that actually counted against me. That I've done a lot of kind of the standard, good citizen stuff, go out, get your degree, get a job, get volunteer, serve in the military, all these different things. And sometimes it's just hard not to feel like I don't have anything to show for it. I have a lot of experiences that, many people for whatever reason don't also share. But at the same time, it's like, well, but what do I really have to show for it? Like, yes, I was in the military, but what do I have to show for it? Yes, I got my degree, but what do I have to show for it? I volunteered as a, believe it or not, as a youth leader, and it's like, what do I have to show for it? But I'm not saying like they owed me something. I'm saying that, right, like how come it seems like it's been so difficult for me in particular to use those experiences to advance in my own life? How come? Right, like if I've done all that, how come people who, like, compared to people who haven't, and they have, some kind of stable jobs or whatever. So I'm sure there's plenty of people that will want to say, well, it's because you dye your hair, it's because you make this kind of video, it's because you say this about, feminism, that's why. And there have been, like, oh my god, I remember I was really like, one day, I don't want to use my struggles as like a banner of suffering, but one of these days we're going to talk about how real Sony made things for herself, like talking about just always about an hour away from homelessness, it felt like, all the time. We're going to talk about the stupid things Sony did one of these days, more so. But anyway, I was really fighting not to be homeless at the time, and I remember not consulting, but I was talking to kind of one of the elders that I know that practices Buddhism. And again, this is not a reflection of any organizations that we're part of or things like that. This is this individual person that I chose, and it was a male, just so you know. It was an older male that I have respect for, and you know, I trusted him, you know, to the extent that I may trust people. And in other words, like I didn't feel like he was going to say anything, you know. I never knew that he didn't like me. That's really the most direct way to say it. And he saw me walking by, and he was like, "Hey, you know, what's going on with you? Come talk to me." And I guess because I must have looked probably sad or something. And I was just telling him a little bit about, you know, like I was like, I don't know where I'm gonna live. I'm trying to figure this out. I ran out of money. You know, I need a new job. On and on and on. Like everything that you could need was something that I needed, and I was just so frustrated, and just upset and scared at the end of the day. And he let me go on and on. He let me like, you know, air it all out, and he like waited for me to like stop being all worked up. And he said, you know, you're a really judgmental person, and you know what, you probably like, maybe you deserve to be homeless. And I was like, you're joking, right? Like, I was salty, right? Like there wasn't there, you know, what do you, for somebody that I didn't even like, we weren't related, like we had worked closely together in some volunteer efforts, but I didn't think we knew each other deep enough that I could have done something to him or around, or something to cause him to conclude that I was a judgmental person that deserved to be homeless. And that's why I really, like at the time, I was just, you know, I just charged it to the game, because there were a lot of people, you know, now that I was finally reaching out and asking for help, there were a lot of people that, you know, we had gone all these years, I didn't know that they felt that way. And then, you know, I kind of found out the hard way when your girl was in flames. So, he was one of many people that, you know, once your girl was like finally throwing out an SOS signal, right, your girl found out she did not have like too many allies. Like it was kind of like neutral, like they didn't necessarily, well, maybe actually some of them did wish me harm, and I was totally blind to it. I didn't know. But then, you know, like I said, like I ended up reaching out to different people. I mean, not necessarily like, oh, please, you know, everybody just give me money now. But, you know, I mean, it was getting to the point where I was just, right, basically desperate. I didn't want to be on the street, and I was just, at that point, it was just like, to me, of course, to me, the hardest part was, like, to me, it took courage to be humble and ask these people for help, but they kind of took that opportunity to, you know, kind of, I don't know, they felt like I had made so many beds and I needed to lay in them. That was the impression I got. But, you know, again, like, your girl found out that even if people haven't been feeling you, or they're not feeling you anymore, it turns out that you still have to find a place to live. You still have to pay bills. You still have to try to get back to some kind of ground. So if they don't want to help you get back to being an upstanding citizen, then even their animosity towards you is like, I can't even entertain that, because okay, like, what's clear is that you don't want to help me make it right. Like, if you feel like I did wrong, what's clear is out of like retaliation, you want to like make it more difficult for me to make it right. So you know, I guess, right, like I'm salty at the same time. There's nothing, I'm noticing that you're making it more difficult to make it back right with you, or you know, your view of me or whatever. And then that also is what helped, I guess, will help remind me that you just really can't be worried about what people think. And also that just because you are, you know, apologizing, or you feel like you weren't aware of certain behavior or whatever like that, like you're trying to take responsibility, like people don't have to accept your apology. People don't have to agree that you're making an effort to change or do better, or acknowledge that acknowledge that you are trying to, you know, change. certain behaviors, they don't have to accept it. They don't. They don't owe you that. So your girl found out the hard way, that like some of these people have been low-key like salty, I guess, or you know, they were poison against me. I don't know, like I can't dwell on it. It sucks, it's a shame, but I can't dwell on it, you know. And I'm not trying to act like my drama is unique. I'm just saying, like your girl had to, the show had to go on, but your girl found out that she had, you know, fans on both sides. But that's, you know, a fan is a fan is a fan. If they have to devote energy to loving you or hating you, they're still a fan. You know, if that's how they wanna play the game, I guess. But anyway, that was not even what I was coming to talk about on this episode. Today I was going to tell you guys, I told you a few different situations, like the wife with the permission slip and things like that. If you are new to this channel, please go check out those videos if and when you have time. The stories are, like, I think they're funny. Hopefully, like, I don't mean at other people's expense. I mean at my expense. Like, you know, I'm not laughing at anybody else's pain per se. I'm mostly highlighting my own. So anyway, today we're going to talk about, I think I have three different times that I'm going to tell you that men that told me they were single were not, and their wives or a person claiming to be their wife wanted to confront me. So, alright, story the first. No, the first story, again, like, and I attribute this to karma, because all three were instances where I did my best to confirm that this male was single, and they, you know, they either weren't, or they didn't know that they weren't, or, you know, like, however that, I don't know. I don't know why they didn't, I don't know why they were more interested in being, more interested in getting away with a double life than just like working on their relationship or whatever. But it's important to me for you guys for it to be clear that these were three instances where the male told me that he was not involved, and it turned out he was. And of course, these were the wives that, you know, three different occasions that they decided to contact me, and how your girl handled that. So, okay, so the first one, I met this guy, you know what, I had a car, I had my car delivered, that's what it was, and I needed a tow truck driver to tow it into the apartment complex where I lived, because it was a project car and it didn't run yet. I needed to do a few things to it. So, so this tow truck driver came, and right, I thought it was kind of cute, and he had my number anyway because of the service, and I forget if I hit him up or he ended up texting me on it, right? I really don't remember. But either way, we had started communicating, and actually I mentioned this story in a previous video. He has another thing that was the one that had the pentagram on it. So I mean, at the time I did not know he had that that on there. So anyway, so we kind of like hit it off or whatever. He was, you know, we were texting each other. I was still kind of new to Vegas. I had only been living there maybe like a year or so, a year or maybe 2 years, and he told me that he was divorced, and that he had had a small toddler boy who died. That's what he told me off the bat. I said, oh, okay. You know, so he said, I'm just, you know, it's been a while since I was getting in a relationship and blah, blah, blah. But, so I was like, okay, cool. Well, I'm single. I've never been married, and I don't have any kids. So that works fine. So he would come, you know, we would hang out at all different times and go out to the sand dunes. Well, I guess I still do. I just haven't been able to, but I used to really love going out to the sand dunes. I don't know what your views about shooting out at the sand dunes. I don't know your views on that. I don't want anybody to be hurt. I would not want a stray bullet or something like that to hit someone. So I understand that safety is more important than just, you know, what I like. But let's just say that if there were a way to shoot out in the sand dunes without, you know, for it to be okay, like, you know, not nobody accidentally getting shot or something like that. If there was an opportunity to shoot and it was okay, then I like shooting out in the sand dunes for that. So anyway, so we were doing all kinds of stuff, barbecuing, whatever. We're having a great time. We went swimming. You know, I told you guys about that. But so I'm thinking it's all good, and we're getting actually kind of close. And he had a I think he told me he had a drug problem in the past, but like he was clean, or maybe he never told me. And I just assumed, and we didn't talk about it because a couple of his teeth were a little suspect, and it just, you know, it just looked like, you know, maybe he had been through some things. Excuse me. So, you know, whatever. Like he had, like, his hygiene was really good. He always was like clean cut and everything. He wasn't like a dirty guy. So, you know, I wasn't gonna like to me it was extra to hold something like that against him at the time. That's how I felt. So we were hanging out, everything was going well, it seemed to me. And he knew I was Buddhist and I practiced Buddhism, and he was actually kind of getting into it. And you know, he was just curious about the philosophy and stuff like that. So I'm like, okay, cool, you know, somebody that is at least, you know, supportive of my faith, which is cool. So like that's a good sign. Like I wasn't worried about like making sure I was married at the time or anything, but it was nice to feel like, you know, I was dating someone that, you know, we were vibing. It was more of a good time than like a tumultuous time. So anyway, one morning I get a call. It's like 9:30 in the morning or something, and it's a woman, and like she doesn't introduce herself. She just called. Like, I answered the phone. Actually, it was a call from him. So I saw that my phone was ringing and it was him. So I answered the phone, and I think, right, like on some real typical shit, like, oh, hey babe, you know, this kind of thing. And this woman was on the line and said like, why are you calling this number? Oh, so I mean, of course, like by now your girl has knows what the game is. And I'm like, great, okay, so this guy has been lying, he's been living a double life, here come this girl. And for me now, it's more about like talking her down, you know, like I'm ramping up to talk her down and explain like, okay, look, I wasn't trying to challenge your relationship. I'm not trying to be a homewrecker. He literally lied on your marriage. Like, I understand if you're upset, but, you know, can you please just consider that he lied on your marriage? It's not that I said, hey, are you a married guy that I can, like, really break your wife's heart? Like, I wake up every day trying to think about how to do that. You know, no, it wasn't like that. He lied. So anyway, she's on my phone and she's like, why are you calling this number? And she wasn't screaming. She was just like really like scary calm. I don't know if she was in shock. I don't know if she normally, sound, you know, just sounds very serene, but she was not screaming. You know, she was willing to listen to me. She might have been so shocked and upset, I don't know. But I ended up telling her, I said, look, you know, I'm so sorry. I guess you're so-and-so's wife. He told me that he was divorced and that you guys had a child that passed away. And that's when she kind of like, cause right, like, of course, you know, somebody hears that somebody's saying their child has passed away and they're not, is like, I don't know, I don't like talking like that. I don't like talking that way about people. You know, you shouldn't joke about things like somebody being dead and things like that. I don't think that's funny. So anyway, right, she said, no, you know, we have a child and he's not dead, and we're not divorced, we're married. And I see that, you know, I have all these like I have all these calls and texts from this number, you know, what are you and him doing? I said, well, I mean, to be honest, we were dating, based on the fact that I thought he was single. So we kind of like, she just, I guess, had a couple more questions, and just, you know, I just calmly explained. She was calm, like, she seemed upset, like stunned, but she wasn't, you know, rude or trying to bring noise or be where you live. Like, she wasn't trying to come for me, and I really appreciated that. So I was just telling her that, you know, um, we were studying Buddhism, and, you know, if she was interested, you know, she could come too, that it wasn't that kind of party, that, you know, like, in other words, I wasn't worried about trying to take him from her. Like, honestly, I hope you guys get counseling if that's what you think is best, or, you know, whatever ends up happening. Like, I'm rooting for your family. And if I had known that that the story was not true at all, then I wouldn't have pursued it, because I'm not about that life. I have renounced that life, you know. She just kind of like, she listened. I feel like she listened to what I said, but you know, she didn't, that seemed to be the end of it. Like, we hung up, and then I couldn't get a hold of, like, I didn't get a hold of him. She called me from his phone. I think during the phone conversation, she told me that he like left. I guess she grabbed his phone and called me, and then I guess he realized that, you know, the jig is up, if you will, and so he just got in his car and left. Then I got a text later on saying that, you know, still from his phone, but it was saying that, you know, this is so-and-so's wife, and he made me text you that he tried to commit suicide, and he's in, you know, but he's in the hospital. And it's, you know, he's gonna be okay, but, you know, like, he just told me to tell you. And I mean, because I didn't really know if that was her or him, like, if that was him texting me, like, oh, it's so-and-so's wife, and he made me tell you that he, you know, he's okay. Again, like, I guess that's technically the fourth guy that, you know, he pretty much was like, to his wife's face, like, oh yeah, like, I deal with her, so deal with it. And these girls, you know, they accommodated, more or less. I wouldn't say that she was accommodating it, but, you know, she was being there for him, and still, like, if that was true, you know, then in other words, you're saying, like, can you imagine your husband making you text his girlfriend that you tried to commit suicide, but you're okay, you're in the hospital, they're pumping your stomach, or I guess, like, I don't want to assume any details, because I don't know. And maybe she did really was the one who texted me, but it wouldn't surprise me if, like, he already lied and had, like, a whole double life. We're talking about, like, two Facebooks. You know, like he was already about the lie life, is my point. So, you know, why wouldn't it be possible for him to be lying about all that stuff? So I ended up blocking him. You know, I didn't want to see him. I didn't want to be, like, involved with that, because it was too crazy. And you know, I felt like it was still like a peaceful confrontation with this woman. But, you know, I mean, who knows what he was going to say to save his own skin now that, you know, he got caught, basically. So, and I gotta tell you guys, like, he didn't leave it alone. He knew where I lived and proceeded to kind of low-key stalk me. I wouldn't even say low-key, but I didn't file a report. I didn't call the police, so that's why I guess I'm kind of, like, downplaying it, because, you know, if I felt like it was that serious, then I should have called the police. But I don't really like getting involved with the police, you know, because I just don't. It's too much of a Russian roulette. Maybe you'll get a cop who cares. Maybe you won't. The chances are much too 50-50 for me in these times. And, you know, I don't, so that's just me. If you're, you know, I'm not trying to come at you if your family are, you know, blue or, you know, whatever like that. So, anyway, he wouldn't leave it alone. Even I blocked him, but I think I had mentioned before that I had this app that shows you when somebody is trying to call you even though you haven't blocked. So he was sending me all these messages and songs from YouTube still and like stuff like that, and I was just ignoring it. He came to my house and was like banging on the door. I just want to talk to you. And not the first person to scream that to me either. And you know, I remember chanting Nam Myoho Renge Kyo for him to just go away. Like, I just wanted to be safe. You know, I was going to school and getting home late at night, and I lived on my own, you know, so I was worried, you know, about him just showing up and acting crazy. He was leaving like long notes on my car, all kinds of stuff that, you know, after he got caught. Like, that's the crazy part, is like he started acting crazy when I wouldn't talk to him anymore because he got caught. You know, whether, even if that girl is lying, which I don't think she was, but, you know, if you have women calling after you saying that kind of stuff, you know, I mean, and then, you know, it was just a little too much. So I wanted to remove myself from the situation. He was still coming for me. You know, I guess like him getting caught, like he acted, I guess he played the part for her and then was still trying to come after this. And I was like, that's when I was like, okay, no, you're crazy. And right, we had the pentagram thing. I think it was like the day after I saw his tattoo. And so anyway, you know, I had a lot of respect for the fact that that girl didn't try to you know, create extra drama between me and herself, because it wasn't like that. He lied from the very beginning to say that he was single, and that was kind of, you know, so it wasn't intentional. I was literally just finding out from her when she called me that that was not the case. So that was that. Oh, so he kind of like just you know what? I finally texted him and said, if you try to contact me again, I am going to finally just call the police. I have your number and I know at least the last place you worked. Leave me alone. And then he finally disappeared. Well, at least to my knowledge, because again, like, he was the type that he knew where I live, and he was a tow truck driver, so he had the codes to all the gates. You know, whatever in the city, like whatever ones that were part of his like for his company, so he could get into our complex. And so I don't know if he was ever like checking up on me behind the scenes, but you know, for my sake, he wasn't reaching out to me anymore, and I appreciated that, because I did want him to leave me alone. Go home, 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 go home. So anyway, let's move on to the next one. Sorry, that got me worked up, because I was so annoyed that he would not go home. I was like, really? We went through all this? Like, I had like a peaceful discussion with your wife. Excuse me, sexy. I had what I consider like a peaceful discussion with your wife. Can you please just go home? Like, can you just go home? Because you're trying to have your cake and eat it too. There's too many people out here to be worried about you. Fun's over. Like, you lied. Okay, at least thank goodness this girl was checking up for you. Thank goodness she wasn't done with you, because you weren't about to come live with me. So, right, like, it was messy, but I was just glad that it concluded. Okay. So, the next story, there was someone that, again, met on a dating app. We were both military veterans, and so, you know, we kind of connected on the, like, one in companionship, but we were kind of funny about, like, love and romance and, like, physical. So I was like, well, correction, I told him that was how I felt, and he agreed and told me, you know, like, he understood, and that, you know, because I wasn't really attracted to him. But we were good companions, you know. I wasn't necessarily physically attracted to him, you know, all the time. So I told him I was just, you know, funny about it, and you know, I might not, like, I didn't know if I wanted to get like sexy with him or not. So you know, he told me that, like, that he respected that, and that, you know, he would just feeling us being together and like this whatever. So this is like a double or triple story time, because this was another example of somebody living a double life. He told me some really tall tales, and among the first of them being that he was a single dad who had full custody of his children, three small children, and you know, like he I think he told me like they were, yeah, right, he was divorced, right. He used the, I was just trying to remember if he used the actual word divorced, or because some of them just say like, oh, me and we're Splitsville or whatever kind of stuff. That's a little more vague. No, he actually used the word divorced. And he had a couple of other little like crazy stories to explain why this was like this or that was like that. And at the time, I'm like, okay, it's a companionship kind of like partnership, right? So it's, you know, whatever, in other words. So we, you know, we got along and we were hanging out. We were spending a lot of time together. We were dating, and we we were talking about taking things to the next level. That's just the way I'll say it. And you know, I'm gonna say this for another story time, but the point is, like, I finally found out that this person wasn't at all who they said they were. They lied about a lot of crap. They and they were, the situation at home for the kids that he had custody of was not a good look. Like, there was something going on. I'm not talking about like sexual abuse per se, but there were some issues, that it was finally becoming too much for me. You know, I said, I know I've never been a parent, but something here is not right. And that was finally a deal breaker for me. And without getting too many details, maybe I'll tell, maybe once I just like make sure that that's okay, that I really want to do that, I will tell, you know, kind of what happened there, because it was like really crazy. But for now, the point is that me and this person, like, we tried to have something, and that unraveled once, you know, they couldn't uphold the facade, if you will. So I did what I had to do and got out of there. Okay, so I like blocked this person. I don't talk to this person anymore. I didn't, like, once I was done, I never saw them again. Like, I walked away and never saw them again. And that was that. They, you know, like I said, the situation they told me is that they were divorced, but they did have full custody of their kids. You know, they accused their ex of some stuff, you know, he was saying was the reason. You know, so I was just like, okay, like, and then we never talked about his situation again. We never talked about his ex-wife or whatever like that. Like, I didn't say, oh, well, did your ex-wife know, or what did your ex, he said, I'm divorced and I have the kids because of this. And I said, oh, okay, and we literally, like, that conversation didn't come up anymore. So couple months goes by that like I said, for me and this person, as far as we're concerned, we dropped off the face of the earth. We do not speak. There's not anything to talk about. We don't reach out to each other. We don't lurk on it. Well, I wasn't trying to find his social media or anything like that. I end up getting a Facebook message from right, an Angry Bird. This woman it was a female. She would, you know, request message me. She was trying to tell me that she was this person's wife, and kind of like trying to come for me. You know, she was clearly feeling some sort of way. And I was looking at the message and kind of being like, oh man, how do I tell this girl that, like, this is not how it is. It wasn't that we willfully, like, had some relationship behind her back, because that was the message. Like, she was, you know, kind of trying to come for me. Sexy, excuse me. And I was trying to explain to her, so I did, and I said, well, you know, just so you know, he told me he was divorced, and then we literally like you weren't brought up anymore. So you know, and I haven't talked to this person, like you're late, you know, it's that's already a done deal. And she, you know, she persisted and wanted to, you know, like, oh, you know, like she was still trying to make it an argument. And I'm like, I keep trying to tell you that you know, when I met him on a dating app, hello, when I met him on a dating app, he told me that he is divorced, and no mention ever came up of it. And the kids, you know, the kids were coherent and like of age that they could have, you know, they could have told on him if they wanted to, I guess. They were scared of him, I think. So probably they wouldn't have, you know, if he was still with her and kind of going back and forth, the kids were giving no clues. It's not like they whispered it in my ear and then I was like, oh, okay, but we're going to keep our family anyway. You know, I had no knowledge of this woman. Like, in fact, when she came for me 2 months after I had even had contact with the one she was holding up the baggage claim for, by the time she reached out to me, I'm like, this is 2-month-old T. Like, I've moved on so hard. Like, I did what I had to do for that, and I'm like so not so I mean, I worried about the kids, but like I was so not worried about, you know, trying to hold on to that dude. And she was kind of like trying to make it she was trying to make it a confrontation about you know, like discovering the other woman. And I'm like, honey, like chances are he done run through two or three more girls since me, you know, that he ran this scam on. And I'm not trying to be rude, but there's only so much of this that I can, you know, take ownership and like resolve with you. You know, again, like I mentioned before, I don't fight females. I don't that's not my thing. I'm not saying like obviously if you get pushed, but I'm saying like I know some girls are hyped to fight, like, oh yeah, we're gonna fight, I want to fight somebody. And you know what, if that's you, like who am I? But you know, it doesn't, like, I don't wake up in the morning craving a fight with a female. I don't I'm not like worried about being the one who got to have the final word. I'm literally just trying to tell her, okay, I'm sorry that happened, but you know, this person literally said that you were not a non-factor, so we moved on, like based on that information. So our whole relationship, if you want to even call it that, our whole thing wasn't based on how that affected you. And I don't deal with this person, haven't seen this person for 2 months. So like there's only so much I can say about it. I'm done with him. He's probably scamming the next chick. I don't even know where he is. So I'm sorry that, you know, I'm sorry that it happened, but he told me he was divorced. Like, the kids never mentioned you. There was nothing to indicate, you know. So she was kind of like, not, it seemed to me she wasn't quite satisfied with that like conclusion, but she more or less, to me, she was kind of messaging me like kind of in a way that was like she was giving me a pass, if you will. For me, it's like, okay, you know what, you're the one who has the marriage that's like having the problems. I'm single. I've never been married. So, you know, if you have to tell yourself that you gave me a pass, then, you know, if that's what keeps the peace, I would rather just, you know, oh, okay, girl, like, okay, you know, because again, like I'm trying to tell you that he was divorced. Like, he told me he was divorced as soon as we met, and that was always the premise. So it wasn't ever about how we could hurt you, for me. So there's only so much, like, as somebody who did not know you were still attached, there's only so much that, you know, I can be like, that I can take, that I can own, you know. And I feel like I'm trying to own my side of it with you, but at the same time, you know, I've moved on. I'm not saying, oh well, move on for you, but you know, he's not even on my roster, girl. Right, he told some big whoppers, So if you right, like I don't, girl. So right, so she kind of was like, oh well, I thought about it, like I'm paraphrasing, but more or less she's like, oh well, then I'm gonna give you a pass basically. And I'm like, oh okay girl, like only because again, like whatever keeps the peace. I don't feel like I need a pass, but I'm not worried about meeting you on the basketball court by the flagpole at 3 p.m. Like I'm not trying to go back to, excuse me, like some kind of high school shit, Wild West like showdown over somebody that was living a double life, lying about every little thing, telling some big old lies. That is like I'm 2 months moved on from. You know what I mean? So, she kind of just faded to black. I tried to keep it civil with her. Again, like she was coming at me with like kind of the attitude that day, but I was trying to keep in mind, like she was trying to feel some sort of way about her husband roaming the forest, I guess, and I guess trying to get him back to the yard, and she just trying to follow the trail. So, I pretty much, I tried to own it as best I could, but again, like I had knowledge that they were divorced, so it is what it is. Okay, so she kind of just faded to black as far as I can tell, and again, no shade towards her. I'm just saying, like at the time, she was kind of rude to me, but given the circumstances, she felt some sort of way. I was trying to explain to her that I never knew she was still with him, so her trying to come for me was kind of like null and void for me. So please be well. And then the last story that I was going to tell you was my, y'all. So right, like I mentioned, there was, well, one guy in my life that I felt like was my soulmate, that, that I felt like, I wanted the 2.5 with it. Well, actually, I didn't want kids, but the picket fence and married couples goals, like all that corny, back when I believed in being in love and all that kind of stuff. This was my person. And the one that I told you now has like three baby mamas. Uh, no shade to you if you have multiple, that's variety. Honestly, I know that the dynamics in the relationship is probably can be a struggle, but I'm not mad at people who have like multiple partners and kids and stuff. I'm just saying, like, right, if the relationships are not in good standing, if you will, that can create like so much drama. So so anyway, so they're doing their thing, and this was years ago. Like I think it was like after the military. We met in the military. I had gotten out, and I finally decided to go home, or asked to come home, and he was still on the opposite side of the country. Like I think I had mentioned to you guys that, he had purposely chosen orders that were on the other side of the country from where I was stationed when we were together. And, like for me, the relationship was just like way more serious, I think, than compared to how he felt. But it was kind of, I think he was just kind of, like he had love for me, but he wasn't in love for me, and he couldn't confront, like, and I was like, right, this was the days of wanting a conventional marriage, so I was like trying to hold on to him for dear life. But then it just spiraled out of control and flipped the opposite way, but we could not leave each other alone still. Like, we were still contacting each other, finding each other. He was a SEAL, so he just, if I tried to disappear on him when he will find me if he wanted to find me. If I wouldn't talk to him, then he would just find me anyway. I never realized that he still had the number to my parents' house and stuff like that, and he would just find me. So longer story short, like we we were not together, but we were not letting each other go, it felt like we were dating other people, but you know, I didn't want to. I would told him to his face, like, I'll never let your heart go. Well, I told him because on the phone. And we literally haven't seen each other for like 15 years. This communication back and forth over the last 15 years, never saw him. I was the last person 15 years ago to make an effort to go see this person. Not that he would have cared. Like, I could have just never gone out there, and he wouldn't have cared either way. But I wanted to believe that if I did this, then he would care, basically. Right, backwards, I know. But I was a really young girl, in like hopelessly in love. And I really think this person knew it was hopeless, and but I didn't want to wake up. So anyway, I was like, but he was like attached to me. We had gotten close. We had been through things or whatever. So he knew I was pretty kind of like, right, had some issues, but I was like madly in love with him. He knew I was madly in love with him. So anyway, he had started dating other people, as I mentioned. He already got Johnny Appleseed, just spraying at any ovaries that are around. Right, bitter much. Right, we ironic to me, it was so crazy that we never ended up pregnant. Like, as in love as I felt like we were, we never ended up pregnant. I was adamant about not having kids, but low key I was like, if I got pregnant with this guy, then I would do my best to be to do it right and make the effort. Really, I was scared. I was scared. I didn't want to be a mom. To me, that was like the worst, punishment, or like, just a criminal sentence. Like, it would just be like giving up you have to devote yourself to this other being, all the 24/7. You may never reach your dreams, ironically, only to like I mentioned in the beginning of the video, to have done all these things and have nothing to show for it. For some people, having a baby makes them straighten up and fly right, and then they end up achieving success that they might not have if they hadn't had to be more responsible. So I always wonder, like, if I had, been down to, or at least not been against having children, and we did end up being pregnant, maybe I would have, like, just been so, just not ever doing anything to compromise my stability, because I would not want my baby to suffer because I'm an irresponsible, thought, basically. So anyway, but to me, the most responsible thing I could do was just to not have kids. And I've been saying since I was a little kid that I didn't want to have kids. Wow, I can't believe I've been talking this long. I'm sorry, y'all. Anyway, again, there is a pause button. Where was I? Sorry. So, this guy, we're not together. He's dating other people. I don't know if he had a kid already by this time, but he spent some time in a different state other than the West Coast, and for a while, and I guess met someone that was like taking care of him, was in love with him, the whole thing, right? And a new girl that he was like kind of attached to, or like she was so attached to him. Well, one day, I was actually out at the club with my homegirl, and I'm feeling myself. This is back on the East Coast. I was up and coming. People were like starting to know me for the car stuff. My head, right, I already have a big head. Yes, I know, you can see. And right, like, I know, no shade to my roots. But anyway, right, like, your girl's head was like this big. Your girl was bigger than this. But people were acting, like I said, people showed love. People were not, people were loving me and hating me. But either way, I was, feeling myself. And then my friend was like, my bestie was this big, huge deal of a female. So being out with her just like kaboosh. You know, made us feel like we were just like such a big deal everywhere we went, because there were, you know, so many people in her face, and she was like a very well liked person. So even if whether I was feeling myself or not, I could be out with this girl, and I still would have felt like such a big deal, because just off of her coattails. So my point is that we were hanging out, having a good time. She got us into VIP, of course. So we're sitting, chilling, looking important, and you know, whatever. And I get this text on my phone. I think it was a text, yeah. I think this was before smartphone. So right, like I got like one of these like clam phones, and she had somebody sent me a text message from a number that the guy that I was, you know, in love with, he had called me from that number before, you know, because he would call me from these random unmarked numbers. He would call me from all different numbers, all different phones. Like I said, you know, he was a SEAL, so I just assumed that was part of the, you know, mystery. Okay, like, look, whatever. Because if, like I said, when he wanted, even if the times I didn't want to talk to him, if he wanted to track me down, he did. So anyway, I get a text from this number that's basically saying like, you know, I know that you're still keeping contact with, gosh, what are we gonna call this guy? Let's call him Rooster. Cause right, he got the cock, right? Like that much is clear. 3 kids later, I know I'm bitter, y'all. Like I'm bitter. So anyway, right, so Rooster, she's like, I know that you still been keeping in touch with Rooster, and you need to leave him alone, basically. And I'm looking at my phone, and at first I'm reading it, and because she didn't say who she was or anything. And I'm like, and then I get this big smile on my face, because, you know, like, this girl is so bothered. And because I knew I couldn't have this guy, I would get satisfaction in the fact that I knew that he would tell, like, he would run game on these girls and tell them, like, oh, you know, like we can kick it and date and stuff, but you know, I'm hopelessly in love with somebody else, and you know, you can try to change it if you want, but I just don't think that you can, you know, but try, make sure you try. So these girls auditioning hard, and then you know, so I would be my only consolation from feeling like, well, you know, he's running around with these girls, but his heart belongs to me. You know, that was the only kind of like little raggedy victory. Like I'm like that one holding the flag from Capture the Flag, and it's all tattered, and everybody fought on it. There's like blood and spit on it, and I'm still like, I got the flag. You know, I'm still all proud of myself. So that was my little consolation prize, is that like he was still acting like, you know, I was the queen of his heart. But I mean, that was an empty title. It's not like right, we weren't together, and he was with this girl, but so I found out that he was calling me from his current girlfriend's phone, and this wasn't even the only one he did that to. And I had never told him like, oh, well, you better make sure you call me no matter what. But the times that he didn't have a phone, he was calling me from his girlfriend's phone. And you know, she finally, I guess, I don't know what she thought, but the problem was she was calling and she was texting and coming from me. So she was trying to say like, oh, I know you're reaching out to Rooster, but you know, you better leave it alone. And I'm like, girl, like we were right. I sound like bitter ex-wife that's like trying to hold the control over this guy. But you know, again, like I didn't tell him to call. Like we don't have a child together for him to check up on. It's not like we have, you know, he's choosing to use your phone to call me. And you know, since she was coming at me, I thought it was funny. So you know, like, right, I'm being, and these were during my mean girl days. So like my point is that I'm trying to own it. I'm not telling you guys now like, hey, you know, like that's what she gets. I'm saying that this is what happened, I'm trying to take responsibility. But this girl, let's be clear, this girl came at me. She came at me, was trying to like check me and tell me that, leave my man alone, basically. And I'm thinking, honey, he's reaching out to me. And then, so I believe I said, call me so we can talk about it, or something along those lines. And she disappeared. So I didn't have, he didn't have a phone. He was calling me from all these different phone numbers. So I found him on Facebook. I messaged him and sent a message and was like, you need to keep, I'm trying to take responsibility now. But I'm telling you what I said. I said, you need, basically, like, you need to check your girls. Keep them on a leash. I do not have your girlfriends calling me to tell me that I need to leave. And that was the other thing, is she told me that she knew, she was like, he told me that how you've been messaging him these long love letters, when he had been sending me long love letters, albeit in Spanish. So he had at one point or at different points in time sent me these long, like, I love you and I miss you kind of long letters, but of course that would be all in Spanish. And your girl was not, your girl was a fake Puerto Rican. Your girl, was not fluent in Spanish, and I would get irritated with him all the time. And just because I was being petty, I would just tell him I don't understand Spanish at all, because, because he could, I guess, like some people, I guess, they express their feeling better, that way, like to speak in whatever language they prefer. So he was like telling me all, like writing me these long ass letters in Spanish that I didn't even read, because I was like, I don't understand that, like, so he would always do it that way. So she's like, I know you're sending him, and he told me how you're writing him long letters on Facebook. And I was like, what? So that's what made me think we must have had a smartphone, because I remember sending her, or maybe that was a different girl, because there was more than one girl. There was more than one girl that tried to come for me over Rooster, trying to say like, we're together now, and leave him alone. And I'm like, he comes back to me. But I knew, like, the reason I want to take responsibility is because I knew I was getting pleasure out of them trying to come for me, even though I knew I hadn't done anything. And he was still, checking on me and calling me and telling me he loved me and calling me from his girlfriend's phones and sending long letters in Spanish and stuff. Those were all trophies to me. That was the feeling. I felt like, well, everything he put me through, like, no, I put him through a lot of hell. Like, as far as I'm concerned, we did things to each other. I don't want to make it like a tit for tat anymore, conveniently, but I will say, like, these were the only victories that I could cling to, because I knew he didn't want to be with me. So this was like I said, the consolation prize, and your girl was not turning it down. Your girl put on that little burnt bitter Betty crown on her head, and held, like, sat right on that runner-up queen's throne, that his heart is gonna belong to me, but he's still gonna be out in the breeze doing whatever he wants. Your girl, like, the only victory I could cling to was that these girls were upset that he was never going to be totally in love with them, and that things like this were a reminder of that. So I would play the role, and I would totally be the villainess, just because it was the only victory I could cling to for this situation. It's like, well, you guys might be getting to spend time with him, but his heart belongs to my little evil hands, and I am not going to let it go. He belongs to me, and I'm willingly letting him hold my heart hostage. I'm more than okay with just being in love with this person. And I was right, like, I was doing what I wanted to. I was still playing the field too, because the reality was he was, we were not together. But it was convenient, because I would rather be in love with him that we're not together and just like playing the field, because I wasn't I didn't worry about if any of these other guys were like the one, you know, I didn't worry about that. I didn't care, you know. So anyway, this girl was like accusing me, and I said, oh honey, and one way or another, I forget how, and I, like I said, I forget if it was this girl or a different girl. But I sent somebody accused me of sending long letters to Rooster, and it was him who was sending me long messages. So I sent her like a screenshot or like a copy or something, like I took a picture. I forget how I got it to her, but I showed her like bits and pieces and said like, you know, you still want to accuse me of reaching out to Rooster? I never heard from her again. So like I said, I mean, I guess the only kind of way I'm like snarky about it is because again, these girls were trying to come at me as though I was like working at wedging in between their romance. Like, oh, if only you weren't still trying to be his friend, then we would thrive and be together and stuff like that. And that's when I stopped giving, like, that's when I went into, you know, uh, I don't want to say beast mode, but you know, that's when I was like not feeling bad if their feelings got hurt, as I proved to them why it's not uh that's not how the situation is for you to come for me. Like I'm fine for you to be upset. Like you have a right to be upset. I can't tell you when to be upset or not, but let's add up the facts in a way that is like um you know, a little more neutral ground. You can't just ignore the fact that Rooster is sending me long messages and try to say that that's what I'm doing. You can't like make it convenient for yourself to hold on to this. You know, right? And so that's what ended up tickling me, that, you know, like this guy still belongs to me even if he runs around with these other women. You know, I'm like, I'm still winning, right? Like that's in what, the world of petty, and probably not even there. Like it, to me now, it was so immature, but that was, like I said, I mean, that was the only time I was in love, and it made me crazy, which is why I'm like, I mean, it's been 15 years, but it's definitely why I take my time with you know, even thinking about that stuff, and I'm cool with not being in a relationship, because love can make people crazy, and I just want to be in a high life condition. You know, when if if I ever do know being in love again, I would want to be in a high life condition so that it didn't bring out the crazy in me. You know, I was very deeply in love with this person, but I had a very low life condition. So like I said, I was just clinging to whatever little victories I felt like I could get out of being, right, like kind of low-key obsessed with this one person. You know, I love them so much, and I felt like, you know, that should be enough for him to love me, but that's not at all how it went. And like I said, I had lots of karma for the times that I did not have respect for other people's relationships. I mean, not maliciously, but you know, like as I've mentioned in previous videos of ownership, you know, I did not just I did not used to always just send guys home if they came for me. If they wandered out of their yard, I didn't worry about sending them home. Um, but you know, even so, then even when I did start sending people home or telling them go home, it like, right, like these girls still coming for me, or you know, I'm still getting blamed for different stuff now that I'm trying to like do right and stuff. You know, like that's why I said like karma is real, even though just like the what I was talking about, when suddenly I found myself in dire straits, and I was trying to be kind to other struggling people, and they were like being aggressive towards me, or I'll end up in some crazy situation, or you know, people would assume things about me that weren't true, right? Because you know, karma is real. You know, no, what I wasn't at all like in this video. This isn't about like laughing at the women who came for me. This isn't about like trashing them. This is to say like, excuse me. This is, if anything, this is just examples of times that, once I was trying to like do relationships right, or dating, as far as, you know, the guy being single, I was being held accountable for these guys having double lives and lying and just like big lies. And these girls didn't want to give up their situation, so they'd rather come for me. You know, and I'm not at all saying, like I just gave that last example, that, you know, I didn't always handle it like a mature woman. But, you know, if you came at me, I was gonna, like, I wasn't worried about hurting those women's feelings when I presented the evidence. If they came at me wrong, you know, if they came for me to say like, hey, you know, you're dating my husband. Like the one girl who came for me, but she was not like being rude. Right, we got to have a civil conversation. I was more than happy to leave her man alone. But for these other situations where the girls were coming at me in a rude way, then I didn't feel bad about presenting the evidence of why we're both salty. You know, it's like, okay, well, look, I'm happy to not do this, but just so you know, ABC. And, you know, again, it's please know that your girl has plenty, has to continues to pay for whatever negative causes I've made. But what, you know, it was just, but there were still situations where it's like, okay, cool, like, I'm happy to take ownership for, you know, whatever I can to be responsible in the situation, but I'm not gonna act like I stole your man if that's not what happened. So anyway, tell me your thoughts. Like, hopefully this didn't come off in a way that I'm pro home wrecking. There's so many levels and layers to that, but I know for some people it's just pretty cut and dry. A lot of people subscribe to the idea that, you know, you're supposed to be like mean to other girls because, like, when you have a man, you know, because they all are trying to get him, I guess. Or whatever, when really we know it's just that, you know, like, you know that you can't control this person from cheating. You don't want them to, but you know they're going to anyway. And then, you know, like, but going after the other person, male or female, I just, unless you can confirm that it was a malicious thing, like this person's trying to take your man, you know, to upset you, or, you know, they are fully aware that you are married to them or whatever, and they're just carrying on trying to bleed the money out, or you know, whatever. These were not those kind of situations, but of course, you know, thanks to karma, these girls kind of still had this mindset. But it just, like I said, at the same time, you know, once they were rude, it was a lot more difficult for me to have compassion for their feelings, and I didn't always pass that test. So anyway, thanks so much. I know that that was like super long, but those stories were kind of, you know, right, like, I needed you to know. But anyway, hope everything's going great for you. Please have a great week. You know, your girl, like I said, I'm in the heat of battle. Your girl was laid off. If I could say, like, what would my dream job be? Honestly, it sounds so dorky, but I wish I could host a TV show like Jay Leno does. You know, like, and it could be online, but I mean, I wish I could have a show where, you know, right, I talk to you guys, tell you guys a couple little anecdotes, and then we have like cool guests, you know, entrepreneurs, like people of color that are doing it, you know, winning in life. I wish I could just be the show host and just introduce you guys to different people that are doing big things in the world, in your community. You know, just interviewing them. I'm in Vegas, so it wouldn't be so weird to like have people fly into Vegas and we just do our little interview, and people, you know, we'll share your links and your business. Like, if you're a business owner, like, let's promote your business, and just talk about how you came up, your success, just from all different walks of life, all different jobs. I wish I could do something like that. You know, entertainment, just right, like all your favorites. How did they make it? Just whoever, but pretty much whoever would agree to come on the show. But I wish I could do something like that, honestly. But who knows? Uh, that's the dream job that I'm chanting for, that I have no idea how that would end up happening except to create this platform myself. So thanks so much for bearing with me, as we like slowly make the ascension to see if Sony can like really reach this goal. It's the holidays, like I said, you know, hopefully you're safe. If not, you know, chill with your girl this year on YouTube, right? Because we'll be well, yours truly, right? Will be solo dolo, will be on her own for the holidays. You know, again, I was going to attempt to make it back to the East Coast. You know, I felt like I was finally going to come back as this like victorious person because I had this like great job now, and you know I was going to be able to afford myself, and you know chip in towards, because it was my grandmother's birthday. She turned 100 years old, and this woman looks like she's like 70. Like I can't tell you our matriarchal secrets. I cannot. That's because she did not tell the secret either. But I know what the secret is. So anyway, you know, so I was happy because you know my family went to great lengths to throw her like a really big celebration, and I really wanted to actually be there. But thanks to right, like I know like a responsible adult will have savings and stuff like that, but I think I mentioned your girl is starting from like under the bottom, coming back here, and I was just slowly getting on my feet and saving up to get my own place and stuff like that, when I was abruptly laid off. um, I want to shout out that company so bad because I'm bitter. I'm like, wow, you lay off veterans for Thanksgiving? Like, they literally called me a few hours before like Thanksgiving Day, like, surprise, you know, we're getting rid of the latest batch of people we hired. Thanks. Happy holidays. And I was so like, and I was mad because like it was like I knew what am I gonna say, like, well, even if I guilt them, even if I say, wow, you know, do you know what I went through to get this far? Like I was finally there. I was finally gonna like getting to have my own place and getting to fly back like a responsible adult for the holidays, and you just like on a whim it's just gone. It's all gone, and you are gonna go home and have your Thanksgiving dinner and not blink an eye. You're gonna go to sleep just fine. But you know, for me, I'm like, oh, worked up thinking about all that kind of stuff, and you know, it's just like feeling like that's you know it doesn't matter. You know, like there, and that, you know, your situation is not unique. I'm not the only person out here that happened to. So or that has to, you know, the show goes on. That's all I keep saying. The show goes on. Oh my God, he got laid off. It. Yeah, the show goes on though. You know, and I feel like this is going to be an opportunity to show you guys some actual proof, because you know your girl's chanting Nam Yo Harenge Kyo to make it happen. I will take any kind of well wishes and prayers that you may have towards me from whatever you know, whatever line of faith you are coming from. I appreciate any kind of well wishes and love. So but your girl is choosing the method of Nam Yo Harenge Kyo, Nichiren Buddhism, to chant herself up a job before the new year. Okay, so maybe I didn't make it back east for my grandmother's birthday. Maybe your girl doesn't have her own place with a little fire going and some Irish hot chocolate and like a little tree and everything. Maybe your girl doesn't quite have the champagne lined up yet for New Year's. Maybe your girl got laid off for Thanksgiving, but she still has what's called Gohanzon. She still chants, and she's still going to have this like faith. This is a great way to challenge my faith. And if and when I bounce back and share my victory with you guys, you are going to be like, wow, you know, she chanted and was victorious. You know, maybe I can look into this philosophy just a little bit. Maybe I can put it to the test, you know. Who knows? You know. That's what I'm trying to say, is that that's what I'm hoping to be able to share with you guys, is that I'm gonna have this stable income victory, you know, but I do understand that, right, like even though it sucks, right, like these people still sleep at night, and like I said, being a veteran, didn't matter. So anyway, hope you're well. Please have a great week. I wasn't trying to depress y'all with that last note, but just know, right, your girl, even against all odds, Philly, we're not there, but let's just say people from Philly, we're not there currently. People from Philly are underdogs, and you know, we gotta come out on top. So I guess it doesn't matter to say that I'm from Philly if I don't live there anymore. Just right, don't come for me or anything about that. Sick gritty on ya. See you guys soon.